My name is Avalon, and I am 28 years old. Last Thursday at Thanksgiving dinner, my sister Delilah told me to stop being a financial burden on the family. The irony? I had been secretly paying her $40,000 credit card debt for 3 years. What she did not know was that I had discovered something that would destroy everything she thought she knew about our family. The evidence sitting in my purse would expose a betrayal so deep that it would shatter our family forever. Before we dive into this family revenge drama that changed everything, I want to know, where are you watching from today? If this story resonates with the complicated family dynamics we all face during the holidays, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family secrets and the sweet taste of justice. Trust me, what happens next will leave you questioning everything you think you know about family loyalty. 3 weeks before that devastating Thanksgiving dinner, I was helping Delilah move into her new luxury apartment downtown. She had been complaining about her old place for months, and I was genuinely happy to see her finally upgrading. As her older sister, I had always felt protective of her, especially after our parents divorced when we were teenagers. While carrying boxes to her bedroom, I accidentally knocked over her purse. Credit card statements scattered across the hardwood floor like fallen leaves. As I gathered them up, my blood ran cold. Statement after statement showed massive balances, designer purchases, expensive restaurants, luxury spa treatments, and cash advances that made my stomach turn. The total across 4 different cards was staggering, $42,000 in debt. But that was not the worst part. What made my hands shake as I held those statements was seeing my own name listed as an authorized user on every single card. Delilah had been using my credit score, my financial standing, to fund her lifestyle for years. The minimum payments alone were destroying my credit rating, and I had no idea. I confronted her immediately. Delilah, what is this? Why am I on these credit cards? She did not even look embarrassed. Instead, she rolled her eyes and sighed like I was being dramatic. Oh, that. Look, Avalon, you know I had some credit issues after college. I just needed someone with good credit to help me get approved. It is not like you are responsible for the debt or anything. But I am listed as an authorized user. This affects my credit score. Have you been making payments? Of course I have been making payments, she lied smoothly. Well, mostly. Sometimes things get tight, you know? But it is fine. I am handling it. That night, I could not sleep. Something about her casual dismissal felt wrong. The next morning, I called the credit card companies. What I discovered made me physically ill. Not only was I listed as an authorized user, but according to their records, I was also listed as a cosigner on 2 of the cards. That meant I was legally responsible for the entire debt if she defaulted. The customer service representative from the first credit card company delivered the crushing blow. Ma'am, your account is currently 90 days past due. The minimum payment of $437 has not been received. This is severely impacting your credit score. I called the other companies. Same story. Delilah had not made a single payment in months. My credit score had plummeted from 780 to 520. The mortgage I had been saving for, the car loan I needed, the financial future I had carefully planned, all of it was gone. But the real betrayal came when I checked my own bank account more carefully. For the past 8 months, I had noticed automatic withdrawals of varying amounts. When I called my bank, they confirmed my worst fear. Someone had set up automatic payments from my checking account to pay the minimum balances on those credit cards. The withdrawals totaled nearly $6,000. Delilah had not just destroyed my credit. She had been stealing money directly from my account to make minimum payments on her shopping sprees. I printed out every statement, every bank record, every piece of evidence. The pattern was clear and devastating. While I had been working double shifts as a nurse, picking up extra weekend hours, and living in a tiny studio apartment to save money, my sister had been living like a queen on my dime. The luxury apartment she was moving into? The rent was $3,800 a month. The designer clothes hanging in her closet? All purchased with my credit. The expensive dinners she posted on social media? Charged to cards that were ruining my financial future. What made it worse was remembering all the times she had borrowed money from me directly. Just $50 for groceries? Or can you cover my phone bill this month? I had given her thousands in cash over the years, thinking I was helping my little sister get back on her feet. Instead, she was already living off my credit while manipulating me for even more money. The most painful realization was how calculated it all was. She had not stumbled into this situation. She had deliberately used my information, my trust, and my love for her to fund a lifestyle she could not afford. Every family dinner where she talked about her financial struggles, every conversation where she complained about money, had been a performance while she was secretly destroying my life. I spent that entire weekend going through 3 years of financial records. The evidence painted a picture of systematic fraud. She had opened new cards using my information, increased credit limits without my knowledge, and even taken cash advances that I was legally responsible for. The interest alone was costing me hundreds of dollars every month. As I sat in my cramped studio apartment, eating ramen noodles while looking at statements for $1,000 shopping sprees I never made, the betrayal cut deeper than I had ever imagined possible. This was not just about money. This was about trust, family, and the realization that the person I had protected and supported for years had been systematically destroying my future without a second thought. I called my best friend Marcus, who worked in financial fraud investigation. When I explained the situation, his response was immediate. "Avalon, this is identity theft. Family or not, what she did is a federal crime. You could press charges." The weight of that statement settled over me. My own sister had committed a federal crime against me. But as I looked at the evidence spread across my coffee table, I realized that pressing charges was not what I wanted. I wanted something much more satisfying than a court case that would drag on for years. I wanted her to experience exactly what she had put me through. I wanted her to feel the humiliation, the betrayal, and the consequences of her actions in the most public way possible. And I knew exactly when and how to make that happen. Thanksgiving dinner at our family home was just 3 weeks away. The morning after my discovery, I sat in my car outside Delilah's luxury apartment building, watching her leave for her yoga class. She was wearing a designer outfit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, carrying a purse that I now knew was purchased with my stolen credit. The rage that had consumed me the night before had crystallized into something much more dangerous: cold, calculated fury. I had always been the responsible one, the older sister who cleaned up messes and fixed problems. But as I watched her carefree smile through my windshield, I realized that my role in our family dynamic had made me an easy target. My predictability, my willingness to sacrifice for others, my desperate need to maintain family harmony, she had weaponized all of it against me. That afternoon, I drove to visit our Aunt Patricia, our father's sister who had always been the family's unofficial banker and financial advisor. Patricia lived in the same modest house she had owned for 30 years, despite having built a successful accounting practice. She was the one person in our family who understood money and, more importantly, understood people. "Avalon, honey, you look terrible," she said as she opened her door. "Come in. Tell me what is wrong." I showed her everything. Every statement, every fraudulent charge, every piece of evidence I had compiled. Patricia's face grew darker with each page she reviewed. When she finished, she set the papers down carefully and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. "This is not just theft, Avalon. This is psychological abuse. She has been systematically destroying your future while manipulating your emotions to keep you compliant." "How long has she been borrowing money from you directly?" "Years," I admitted. "I have probably given her $15,000 in cash over the past 3 years. She always said she was struggling, that she just needed help getting back on her feet." Patricia shook her head slowly. "She was never struggling. She was using your money and credit to maintain a lifestyle she could never afford otherwise. And the psychological manipulation, making you feel responsible for her welfare while she was stealing from you, that is sophisticated emotional abuse." "What should I do?" "Everyone says I should call the police, press charges." "You could do that," Patricia said carefully. "But let me ask you something. What would satisfy you more, watching her get a slap on the wrist from a legal system that barely punishes white-collar crime, or watching her face the consequences of her actions in front of the entire family. The way she phrased it made something click into place. "You think I should expose her at Thanksgiving? I think you should consider what justice looks like to you." The legal system might give her probation and require her to pay restitution she does not have. But public humiliation, loss of family support, and being forced to face what she has done in front of everyone who matters to her? That might be more effective. Patricia helped me understand the full scope of what Delilah had done. Beyond the financial crime, she had spent years manipulating family dynamics to position herself as the victim and me as the stable, reliable sister who should be grateful to help. Every family gathering where relatives praised her for getting her life together, while I worked overtime to stay afloat, had been based on lies funded by my stolen credit. The thing is, Patricia continued, she has been telling everyone a story about her life that makes her the sympathetic character. She talks about her struggles, her hard work, her determination to succeed. Meanwhile, you have been quietly sacrificing everything to make that story possible, and she has been stealing from you to maintain the illusion. That evening, I began planning my response. But this was not going to be an emotional outburst or a dramatic confrontation. This was going to be methodical, documented, and devastating. First, I contacted a credit monitoring service and documented every fraudulent account. Then I called each credit card company and requested detailed transaction histories for the past 3 years. I wanted every purchase, every cash advance, every late fee documented with dates and amounts. Next, I printed out screenshots of Delilah's social media posts over the past 2 years. Post after post showed her at expensive restaurants, wearing designer clothes, taking luxury vacations, and living a lifestyle that her actual income could never support. I cross-referenced the dates of her posts with the dates of charges on my credit cards. The correlation was perfect and damning. I also gathered evidence of the direct financial manipulation. Bank statements showing the automatic withdrawals, text messages where she had asked for emergency money while simultaneously charging thousands to my credit, and records of every cash loan I had given her. But the most important piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. While organizing my financial documents, I found a folder of old tax returns. Looking through them, I realized that Delilah had been claiming me as a dependent on her tax returns for 2 years, despite the fact that I was financially supporting myself and, unknowingly, financially supporting her. She had been getting tax breaks for claiming me as a dependent while simultaneously stealing from me to fund her lifestyle. The audacity was breathtaking. Patricia helped me calculate the total financial damage. The credit card debt, the cash loans, the damaged credit score, the interest and fees, the tax fraud. The total exceeded $70,000 when I included the opportunity cost of my destroyed credit score and the higher interest rates I would now face on everything from car loans to mortgages. $70,000, Patricia repeated slowly. That is more than most people make in a year. She has essentially stolen a year of your life. As Thanksgiving approached, I refined my plan. I would not ambush her randomly or create a scene for the sake of drama. Instead, I would wait for the perfect moment, a moment when the entire family was present and when her behavior would naturally invite the conversation. I knew Delilah well enough to predict exactly how she would act at Thanksgiving dinner. She would complain about money, probably ask someone for a loan, and almost certainly make some comment about how others in the family needed to be more financially responsible. She always positioned herself as barely surviving while subtly criticizing others for having more stability. When that moment came, I would be ready with a presentation that would destroy the carefully constructed narrative she had built about her life and my role in it. Every family member who had ever praised her resilience while wondering why I seemed to be struggling financially would finally understand the truth. The evidence was overwhelming, the timing would be perfect, and the audience would be everyone who mattered to her. Justice was not going to come from a courtroom. It was going to come from the dinner table, in front of the people whose opinions she valued most, with documentation so thorough that denial would be impossible. The week before Thanksgiving, I made a decision that would prove crucial to my plan's success. I invited myself to lunch with our cousin Rebecca, who had always been close to both Delilah and me. Rebecca worked in digital forensics for a major corporation, and I knew her analytical mind would be perfect for what I needed her to see. "I need to show you something," I told her as we sat in a quiet corner of her favorite cafe. "But I need you to promise me that you will look at this objectively, not as family defending family." Rebecca agreed, and I laid out the evidence methodically. I started with the credit card statements, showing her how my name appeared as an authorized user and cosigner. Then I showed her the bank records, proving that money had been automatically withdrawn from my account to pay minimum balances on cards I never used. "Jesus, Avalon," Rebecca whispered as she scrolled through the transaction histories on my phone. "This goes back 3 years. Look at this. She spent $4,000 at that boutique downtown in one day, while you were texting our family group chat asking if anyone wanted to split groceries because money was tight." I showed her the social media evidence next. Rebecca's expertise in digital forensics made her immediately recognize the pattern. "This is systematic fraud," she said, her voice getting angrier with each screen. She was not just overspending. She was deliberately creating a false lifestyle and documenting it, knowing that the bills were going to you. But the moment that sealed Rebecca's support came when I showed her the text message thread between Delilah and me from 6 months earlier. Delilah had texted me at 2 in the morning, "Emergency. Need $300 for rent. Landlord threatening eviction. Please Venmo tonight." I had immediately sent the money, worried sick about my sister being homeless. But Rebecca pulled up Delilah's Instagram from that same week, which showed her at an expensive wine tasting event that cost $250 per person. "She was not about to be evicted," Rebecca said quietly. "She wanted money for entertainment while you were working night shifts to help her with rent that she was not even behind on." Rebecca's anger was different from mine. Where I felt betrayed and hurt, she felt professionally offended. "This is the kind of sophisticated financial manipulation we see in corporate fraud cases," she explained. "The psychological component, the long-term planning, the way she isolated you from understanding the full scope. This is not accidental overspending. This is predatory behavior." She helped me organize the evidence in a way that would be impossible to dismiss or explain away. We created a timeline that showed exactly how each fraudulent transaction corresponded with Delilah's lifestyle choices, cross-referenced with her public social media posts and her requests for additional cash from me. "The thing that makes this so insidious," Rebecca pointed out, "is how she trained you to feel guilty for having boundaries. Every time you worried about money, she made it seem like you were being selfish for not helping family. Meanwhile, she was literally stealing from you to fund the lifestyle that made her feel superior to you." Rebecca's professional perspective helped me understand that what Delilah had done went far beyond typical family financial drama. This was a calculated, long-term financial crime with psychological manipulation designed to keep me compliant and unaware. "You know what the worst part is?" Rebecca continued, looking through more evidence. "She has been positioning herself as the family success story. At Christmas last year, she lectured Uncle Mike about fiscal responsibility while she was literally committing credit card fraud. That conversation with Rebecca solidified something important. I was not overreacting, I was not being vindictive, and I was not wrong to want consequences for what had been done to me. Having someone with Rebecca's expertise validate the severity of the situation gave me the confidence to move forward with my plan. Rebecca also provided crucial strategic advice. "If you are going to expose this at Thanksgiving, you need to control the narrative from the beginning," she said. "Do not let her turn this into a sob story about her struggles or a family dispute about money. This is about fraud, manipulation, and theft. Keep it focused on the facts and the evidence." She helped me prepare for Delilah's likely responses. She will try to minimize it, claim it was a misunderstanding, or make you look vindictive for bringing it up. But you have documentation that proves intent and systematic deception. Do not let her redirect the conversation to emotions when this is about crimes. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I had another crucial conversation, this time with our brother Sean. Sean had always been somewhat distant from family drama, but he was fiercely protective when he felt someone was being taken advantage of. I knew his support would be essential because he had influence with our extended family. I showed Sean the evidence, watching his expression change from confusion to disgust to rage. "She has been playing victim while destroying your credit," he asked, flipping through bank statements. "Avalon, this is insane. Why did you not tell anyone sooner?" "Because I thought it was my fault somehow," I admitted. "She made it seem like I was responsible for helping her, like it was selfish of me to worry about money when she was struggling." I kept thinking I must have agreed to something I forgot about. Sean's response was immediate and decisive. "This is not your fault. This is theft. And the psychological manipulation, making you feel responsible for her problems while she was creating yours, that is sick." Having Sean's support meant having an ally who could help manage family dynamics during the confrontation. He understood our family's tendency to prioritize harmony over accountability, and he agreed that someone needed to prevent Delilah from manipulating the situation into a misunderstanding, that everyone would be pressured to forgive and forget. "The thing is," Sean said, "she has been doing this to other people too. Remember when she borrowed money from Mom last year for that medical emergency that turned out to be cosmetic dental work? And she never paid it back. This is a pattern." That revelation opened up another avenue of investigation. I called our mother and, without revealing what I had discovered, asked about money she had lent to Delilah over the years. The total was staggering. Nearly $8,000 in emergency loans that had never been repaid, all for crises that either never existed or were caused by Delilah's overspending. Our mother's money, my credit, my emotional energy. Delilah had been systematically exploiting every family member who cared about her while presenting herself as barely surviving through her own hard work. The night before Thanksgiving, I could barely sleep. Not from anxiety, but from anticipation. Tomorrow, the careful facade that Delilah had constructed would crumble in front of everyone who had ever praised her resilience or wondered why I seemed to be struggling despite working so hard. I had allies who understood the severity of what she had done, evidence that was undeniable, and a plan that would ensure she could not manipulate or minimize her way out of consequences. But as I lay in bed, reviewing the timeline one more time, I realized that tomorrow was not just about exposing Delilah. It was about reclaiming my own narrative. For 3 years, I had been living a story where I was the struggling older sister who could never quite get ahead, while she was the resilient younger sister overcoming obstacles through determination. Tomorrow, everyone would learn the truth. I had been struggling because she had been stealing from me, and she had been thriving because she had been stealing from me. The real story was about to be told, and this time, I was going to be the one telling it. Thanksgiving dinner started exactly as I had predicted. Our extended family gathered in Mom's dining room, the table groaning under traditional dishes and familiar chaos. Delilah arrived fashionably late, wearing a designer dress that I now knew cost more than my monthly salary, carrying wine that probably cost $200. She hugged everyone warmly, complimented Mom on the decorations, and settled into her usual role as the charming family favorite. For the first hour, I watched her perform the same manipulation I had fallen for countless times, positioning herself as humble and grateful while subtly showcasing her lifestyle. "This wine is incredible, Mom," she said, pouring glasses of the expensive bottle she had brought. "I have been learning so much about wine appreciation lately. There is this amazing sommelier class downtown." Uncle Mike raised his eyebrows. "Those classes are pretty pricey, are they not?" "Oh, I saved up for months," she replied with a self-deprecating laugh. "You know how I am about treating myself to one nice thing when I can finally afford it." I met Rebecca's eyes across the table. We both knew that sommelier class had been charged to one of my credit cards 2 weeks ago. The moment I had been waiting for came during the main course. Our grandmother started her annual tradition of asking everyone to share what they were grateful for. When it reached Delilah, she launched into her prepared speech. "I am so grateful for family support during my financial struggles this year," she began, looking directly at me. "It has been really hard, but I have learned so much about budgeting and responsibility. I just wish everyone could understand that some of us do not have it as easy as others. The implied criticism hung in the air. Several family members glanced at me, the successful nurse who seemed to have her life together compared to poor Delilah, who was always struggling. Speaking of financial responsibility, Delilah continued, emboldened by the attention. I really think our family needs to talk about boundaries with money. Some people keep asking for help, and it is getting exhausting. The irony was so profound that I almost laughed. She was lecturing the family about financial boundaries while wearing clothes purchased with my stolen credit, at a dinner table where she had just claimed to be struggling while showcasing obvious wealth. That is interesting, Delilah, I said calmly, pulling out my phone. Since we are talking about financial boundaries, I have been meaning to discuss something with everyone. I had rehearsed this moment countless times, but my voice was steady and clear. 3 weeks ago, I discovered something that I think the family should know about. I found out that my credit has been used to accumulate over $40,000 in debt that I never authorized. The table went completely silent. Delilah's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I know this is heavy dinner conversation, but since we are talking about family financial responsibility, I thought everyone should see this. I placed printouts of the credit card statements on the table. These are credit cards that show me as an authorized user and co-signer, but I never applied for them or used them. Mom picked up one of the statements, her face confused. Avalon, I do not understand. If you did not use these cards, then who? Let me show you the transaction history, I continued, placing more documents on the table. Notice how every purchase corresponds with social media posts and lifestyle choices that we have all been seeing. I had organized the evidence to tell a story that was impossible to misinterpret. Restaurant charges matched Instagram posts. Designer clothing purchases aligned with family gatherings where Delilah showed off new outfits. Vacation expenses corresponded with her social media travel documentation. The really interesting part, I continued, my voice still calm, is that while these charges were accumulating on my credit, I was also being asked for direct cash loans for emergencies. I showed them the text message thread where Delilah had begged for rent money while simultaneously charging luxury items to my cards. The juxtaposition was devastating. Delilah finally found her voice. Avalon, this is really inappropriate dinner conversation. We can discuss this privately later. Actually, I think it is perfect dinner conversation, Sean interjected, having seen all the evidence beforehand. Especially since you just lectured everyone about financial boundaries while sitting there in clothes that Avalon unknowingly paid for. The family stared at Delilah, and I watched her face cycle through emotions. Surprise, anger, fear, and finally, calculation as she tried to find an angle to minimize what she had done. Look, there might be some misunderstanding here, she began, attempting her usual deflection. Yes, I used Avalon as an authorized user, but that is normal for family. And she knew about it. I have bank records showing automatic withdrawals from my account to pay minimum balances on these cards, I replied, placing those statements on the table. I never authorized those either. Rebecca, who had remained quiet until now, spoke up. Delilah, I work in financial fraud investigation. What you are describing is not a misunderstanding. Using someone's credit without their knowledge and setting up automatic payments from their bank account is identity theft. The total financial damage, I continued, including destroyed credit score impact, is over $70,000. That is more than a year of my salary, stolen over 3 years while I worked overtime to afford helping you with your emergencies. The weight of that number settled over the table. $70,000 was not a misunderstanding or a family favor gone wrong. It was a devastating financial crime. Uncle Mike, who had always been the family's voice of reason, spoke slowly. Delilah, are you saying you did not know that using someone else's credit without permission is theft? It was not like that. Family helps family. Avalon has good credit, I needed help getting back on my feet. While charging $4,000 for a single shopping trip. I asked, showing them that statement. Or taking a $3,000 vacation while texting me that you needed emergency rent money. The evidence was so overwhelming that even Delilah's usual manipulation tactics could not work. Every family member could see the pattern, the calculation, the systematic deception that had been happening while she positioned herself as struggling and grateful. The thing that really hurt, I said, my voice finally showing emotion, was realizing that every time I worried about money, every time I picked up extra shifts, every time I felt guilty for not helping more, it was because you were stealing from me while making me feel selfish for having boundaries. Grandmother, who had been silently reviewing the documents, finally spoke. Delilah, this is not about family helping family. This is about lying, stealing, and betraying someone who loved you. The room erupted then. Family members who had praised Delilah's resilience began connecting dots about her lifestyle versus her claimed income. Questions flew about other loans, other emergencies, other inconsistencies that suddenly made sense. But the most satisfying moment came when Mom asked the question I had been waiting for. Delilah, how could you do this to your sister? Because for the first time in 3 years, the question was not why I could not do more to help Delilah. The question was how she could have done this to me. The immediate aftermath of my revelation was everything I had hoped for and more devastating than I had anticipated. Delilah's carefully constructed image crumbled in real time as family members began connecting years of inconsistencies that suddenly made perfect sense. Aunt Patricia was the first to speak after the initial shock. This explains so much, she said, shaking her head. Delilah, last Christmas you lectured me about my spending habits while wearing a coat that obviously cost more than I spend on clothing in a year. Uncle Mike pulled out his phone and started scrolling. You posted about that wine tasting in Napa last month, complaining about how expensive everything was, but saying you deserved to treat yourself after working so hard. That trip had to cost thousands. And you asked me for $500 that same week, our cousin James added, his voice getting angry. You said your car needed emergency repairs. I watched Delilah's face as the family began dissecting her lies in real time. She had built her entire social media presence around a lifestyle she could not afford, funded by my stolen credit, while simultaneously positioning herself as barely surviving and deserving of everyone's financial help. The European vacation last summer, Mom said slowly, pulling up Delilah's Instagram on her phone. You posted about saving for years for that trip. But according to these statements, you charged the entire thing to Avalon's credit cards. Rebecca had brought her laptop and was cross-referencing Delilah's social media posts with the credit card transactions in real time. This is remarkable, she said, her professional fascination overriding family drama. Every major purchase is documented on social media with a story about how she saved up or worked hard to afford it, but the actual charges are all on Avalon's cards. Delilah finally exploded. This is ridiculous. You're all acting like I am some kind of criminal. Yes, I used Avalon's credit, but she has a good job and good credit score. I was going to pay her back when I could afford it. When you could afford it? Sean repeated incredulously. You have been stealing from her for 3 years while living better than any of us. When exactly were you planning to pay back $70,000? And what about the psychological manipulation? Rebecca added, her forensic training making her cut straight to the heart of the behavior. Making Avalon feel guilty for having financial boundaries while you were actively stealing from her? That is not just theft, that is emotional abuse. The family began recounting story after story of Delilah's financial manipulation that they had previously dismissed as normal family drama. Our cousin Sarah remembered lending Delilah money for groceries the same week Delilah posted about an expensive spa day. Uncle Mike recalled giving her cash for utilities, while she was simultaneously posting about designer purchases. You have been running a con on your entire family, Aunt Patricia said bluntly. Using everyone's love and concern for you to fund a lifestyle you could never afford, while making the person you were stealing from feel guilty for not giving you even more. But the moment that broke Delilah completely came when Mom asked to see her actual income documentation. If you have been struggling so much, show us your pay stubs. Show us your real financial situation. Delilah's face went white. I do not have to prove anything to you people. Actually, you do, Rebecca said, her professional voice cutting through the family drama. Because according to these credit card statements, you have committed multiple felonies. Identity theft, credit card fraud, bank fraud, and possibly tax fraud if you have been claiming Avalon as a dependent while stealing from her. The word felonies seemed to hit Delilah like a physical blow. For the first time, she seemed to realize that this was not family drama that could be smoothed over with time and manipulation. This was serious criminal activity with real consequences. I could press charges, I said quietly. Multiple federal agencies would be interested in this level of systematic financial fraud. The evidence is overwhelming. You would not, Delilah said, but her voice lacked conviction. I am your sister. You were my sister, I corrected. My sister would not have spent 3 years systematically destroying my financial future while manipulating me into feeling guilty for not giving her even more money. The family was silent as the full scope of what had happened settled over them. This was not just about money. It was about trust, manipulation, and the realization that they had all been enablers in a sophisticated financial crime. Mom was crying quietly, looking at the woman she thought she knew. Delilah, how could you look Avalon in the eye and ask for emergency money while you were spending thousands on luxury items with her stolen credit? And posting about it on social media, Sean added disgustedly. Literally documenting your crimes while making your victim feel guilty for not giving you more. Delilah tried one last manipulation. You are all being so cruel. I made mistakes, but I am still family. We should be supporting each other, not attacking me like this. Supporting each other. I repeated. Like how you supported me by destroying my credit score so badly that I cannot qualify for the mortgage I have been saving years for? Or like how you supported me by making me work overtime to afford helping you with emergencies that did not exist. Rebecca pulled up something on her laptop. Actually, let me show everyone what this really cost Avalon beyond just the $70,000 in direct theft. She had calculated the opportunity cost of my damaged credit score. The higher interest rates I would now pay on car loans, mortgages, and other credit. The deposits I would have to pay for utilities and housing. The jobs I might lose access to because many employers check credit scores. The total lifetime cost of what you did to Avalon is probably close to $200,000, Rebecca announced. You did not just steal money from her. You stole her entire financial future. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. $200,000. Nearly $250,000 in lifetime financial damage because my sister wanted to live like an influencer without earning influencer money. Delilah finally seemed to realize that her usual tactics were not going to work. She could not charm her way out of federal crimes. She could not manipulate her way out of documented evidence. She could not cry her way out of $200,000 in financial damage. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice small for the first time all evening. I looked around the table at my family, at the evidence scattered across Mom's Thanksgiving dishes, at the woman who had systematically betrayed me while making me feel guilty for having boundaries. I want you to understand that actions have consequences, I said. And I want you to face the same financial terror that you put me through for 3 years. The month following Thanksgiving transformed my life in ways I had never anticipated. Within 48 hours of the confrontation, Delilah had been cut off financially by every family member. Her luxury apartment, her designer lifestyle, her expensive hobbies, all of it evaporated when the family money that had been supplementing my stolen credit disappeared. But the real justice came in watching her experience the exact financial terror she had inflicted on me. Without my credit cards to fall back on, without family members willing to provide emergency loans, and without the ability to manipulate her way out of consequences, Delilah faced her first real financial reckoning. She had to move out of the luxury apartment and into a studio smaller than mine. She had to sell the designer clothes and accessories to make rent. She had to take a second job for the first time in years. Most satisfying of all, she had to face the reality that her entire lifestyle had been built on other people's money and other people's credit. I did not press criminal charges, but I did not need to. The family consequences were more devastating than anything the legal system could have provided. Rebecca helped me work with the credit card companies to remove my name from the fraudulent accounts and begin rebuilding my credit score. Sean helped me set up payment plans that would eventually eliminate the debt without destroying my financial future. Most importantly, I learned to set boundaries that I had never thought were possible. When Delilah called crying about her new financial reality, I did not rush to help. When she sent manipulative text messages about family loyalty, I did not respond. When she tried to get other family members to pressure me into forgiveness, I calmly referred them to the evidence. The family dynamic shifted completely. Instead of being seen as the stable sister who could afford to help others, I was finally recognized as someone who had been systematically victimized while maintaining dignity and strength. Instead of Delilah being praised for her resilience, she was held accountable for her calculated manipulation. Mom apologized for not seeing what had been happening, for not questioning how Delilah afforded her lifestyle, for not protecting me from financial abuse. "I kept thinking you had your life together, and she needed help," Mom said through tears. "I never realized that your life looked together because you were sacrificing everything to clean up the messes she was creating." The most unexpected gift came from deepening relationships with family members who had always been peripheral. Aunt Patricia became a financial mentor who helped me understand how to rebuild not just my credit, but my entire approach to money and boundaries. Rebecca and I grew closer than we had ever been, bonded by her professional respect for how I had handled such sophisticated financial abuse. Uncle Mike, who had always seemed distant, revealed that he had suspected something was wrong with Delilah's financial situation, but had not known how to address it. The math never added up, he admitted. Her lifestyle versus her claimed income, the constant emergencies while maintaining luxury purchases. "But I thought maybe she had family support I did not know about." "She did have family support," I replied. "Mine. She just stole it instead of asking for it honestly." 6 months later, my credit score had improved enough for me to qualify for the mortgage I had been dreaming about. Walking through my first house, a modest but beautiful place that was genuinely mine, I felt a satisfaction that went far beyond homeownership. This house represented freedom from manipulation, independence from people who would exploit my generosity, and proof that I could rebuild anything that had been taken from me. Delilah reached out occasionally, always with the same manipulation tactics that had worked for years. She would start with apologies, move to minimizing what she had done, then escalate to accusations that I was being vindictive and cruel. But the family support she had counted on to pressure me into compliance was gone. Everyone had seen the evidence. Everyone understood what she had done. The most powerful moment came when she finally offered to pay me back. Not because she had the money, but because she was desperate to restore family relationships that gave her access to financial support. I declined. Not because I did not want the money, but because I understood that accepting payment would restart a relationship dynamic that had nearly destroyed me. "The debt is not really about money," I told her during our last conversation. "It is about trust, respect, and the understanding that family love is not a license to exploit people. Until you understand why what you did was wrong beyond just the financial impact, there is nothing to rebuild." I never heard from her again after that conversation, and I was grateful for the silence. A year later, I hosted my first Thanksgiving in my own home. The guest list was smaller than the traditional family gatherings: Rebecca, Sean, Aunt Patricia, Uncle Mike, and a few close friends who had become chosen family. Mom came too, having learned to appreciate honest relationships over keeping peace at any cost. As we sat around my dining room table, sharing stories and genuine gratitude, I realized that losing Delilah had not broken my family. It had revealed which relationships were built on authentic love versus manipulation and convenience. "You know what I am most grateful for this year?" I said during our gratitude sharing. "Learning the difference between family loyalty and enabling abuse. Understanding that protecting someone from consequences is not love, it is enabling. And discovering that real family shows up to support you when you set boundaries, not pressure you to give them up." Rebecca raised her glass. "To Avalon, for showing all of us what real strength looks like." The toast that followed was not just about my specific situation. It was about choosing relationships that build you up rather than tear you down, about recognizing manipulation even when it comes from people you love, and about understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold people accountable for their actions. Looking back, I realized that Thanksgiving confrontation was not really about revenge. It was about truth. It was about refusing to live in a story where I was the struggling sister who could never quite get ahead, when the real story was that I was the victimized sister who had been systematically betrayed by someone who was supposed to love and protect me. The sweetest justice was not watching Delilah face consequences, although that was satisfying. The sweetest justice was reclaiming my own narrative and building a life based on authentic relationships, clear boundaries, and the understanding that I deserved better than being someone's financial victim disguised as family support. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting yourself from financial abuse? How do you handle relationships where love feels conditional on what you can provide? I want to hear your stories about setting boundaries with family members who take advantage of your generosity. Drop your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else recognize manipulation before it destroys their financial future like mine almost did. And if this story resonated with your own family drama experiences, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and finding justice in unexpected places. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they deserve relationships built on respect, not exploitation. Thank you for listening to my journey from financial victim to empowered survivor, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is refuse to enable their worst behaviors. Here's to building chosen families based on genuine love and mutual respect.